Alright, ladies, let's get started. And I think Kate was coming, and now I don't remember if she said she was coming at 6:15 or she had to leave at 6:15. Okay, so we'll get started. When she gets here, she gets here. Okay. Hi, Anita. Anita, nice to meet you.
Yeah, she's our new representative.
So will she be making
We're gonna, but no, either way, it's still she's in the admissions office. So
When I was writing my journal, I started in the rules for journal file right away in the separation.
I think that's
I remember it almost happened.
okay.
There's Miss Kate.
I must be kidding. There was another one. Yeah, no, it's fine. A little bit.
Thank you.
Ladies, I'd like to introduce yourselves and your respective colleges. I'm so excited you're here tonight. Dual purpose-wise, we are recording this because our students in Brainerd are very interested. We have 18 graduates coming up in December, so we're very excited. So they definitely want to know what options are available down here. And then in the same respect, St. Cloud went and presented to their campus and they recorded that. So they'll be shipping that down to us, and I'll put it on WebCT or somehow I'll put a link of it for you all to see that online. So if you're interested in the St. Cloud campus, you can look at what they have to offer as well. So who we have here tonight is representatives from the U of M, Augsburg, and St. Thomas and St. Catherine's University. I did, all right. The name change happened at the beginning of the fall semester, right? Okay, so let each group introduce themselves first. The University of Minnesota does need to take off a little earlier, so I have
The whole university.
whole school. So I've let Kate know that maybe she could go first and talk about her program, take questions from you all, and then we'll thank her for her time and then maybe work with the rest of the colleges. And you guys just let me know when you want me to hand out stuff. Okay? Thanks.
Why don't you?
So we're gonna introduce and then you're gonna do your shape. Okay.
Sure.
Because you're gonna go first and fly.
Well, I can stay for a while, but yes.
Sure. My name is Anita Klein-Cole, and I am an admission counselor for the graduate program, Master of Social Work. And so I will be the one to help you with the application process, tell you, kind of keep you in track what you need to submit, what's still missing in the application. And I've been at St. Kate's for about a month, so I'm fairly new to this, and this is one of my first seminars that I'm attending, and I'm excited to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
Hi, I'm Carol Keekler, and I'm with the School of Social Work, St. Catherine University, University of St. Thomas. I'm the MSW program director.
I'm Kate Walltower. I am the Director of Admissions for the MSW program at the University of Minnesota. I'm also an alum of the program, and I do a little bit with PhD, but mostly I do both recruitment and application and processing and review with the MSW.
And I'm Lynn Ellingson. I'm from Augsburg College. I'm the admissions counselor for the MSW program. Thank you for the invitation.
And I'm Holly Locker-Stuhlen. I'm also with Augsburg College, and I'm the MSW program coordinator. So I work a lot with current students in our program, but Lynn and I also work very closely with prospective students. So feel free to contact me as well for questions.
Okay, well, I know this, because we're on film, I'm feeling.
Yeah, Carol asked if I should get a release or anything from you.
No, that's not necessary, but I'd like, I think, to start off by if you guys don't mind asking this group kind of just a quick around the room of kind of one of the main things that you want to know, or the main things that you're considering or thinking about when you're considering grad school. That would be really helpful, I think, to all of us to know really how to tailor what it is we want to share. Because all of us, I promise you, could go on and on for hours about our programs, and you don't want that. So if anybody is willing to start with sort of the burning things that they really want to get out of this, that might be nice.
You want me to go?
Just kind of like the different tracks you have for your master's programs. Are there some that are more specific, or is it just general? Like we're getting a general education now. Is it just like a general master's,
Yep.
or there's different pathways you can take?
Yep.
Is there more applicants this year because of our economy, and how do you stick out amongst all
And how what?
of them? We shine. Yes,
Yes,
shine.
Yep. And guys, when you ask your questions, make sure you're loud enough, not only for our panel, but also for the camera.
I'm interested to know what you're looking for in the personal statement part of the applications.
A few of the questions I had was about whether they have a clinical background or not. Is there a clinical paper or no that you have to do? The number of contracts or partners that you have for internships, and the program one.
What was the last?
Program one.
Length, the length of the program.
Well, I guess it's money
easy
too.
for us.
Money?
Sure.
It's on the web.
Yeah, you have to dig for it.
Yeah.
Like half hour to find it.
Well, and I was wondering about like time, like we're in evening classes right now, like
Scheduling.
yeah, like
So far, nothing that I can't answer. Anything else?
How about, I'm from Rochester, and I know there's a U of M, and I'm actually just recently considering going on. And I have a question, you know, length of the program, and when do you guys, when does it like, how do you guys cycle it? Like, when would be a good time to apply?
Okay.
And stuff like that. Kind of along the lines of Andy's question too, is kind of like, what are like the three major things you look at an applicant when applying to your program? Three most kind of important things, or I don't know.
Anything else? Okay, all right. That gives us a lot to work with. And absolutely, even though we're on camera, raise your hand if, I know for myself in particular, I might go on about something and I'm not necessarily making sense, and that is perfectly fine for me to say, okay, back up one more time. It does get a little confusing, especially I think when all of us talk about schedule and credits and that kind of stuff. So let me maybe just go over a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the program at the U of M, because I know you also have questions about sort of the application side as well. Let's see, we have two general concentrations in our program, and advanced standing students actually try to really know that when they apply. We ask you to know that pretty quickly. Our advanced standing program is a minimum of 34 credits. It's a minimum of 34 credits because if you had less than a B in any of your required social work classes, we may ask you to repeat that. Or if you decide to wait a while and it's been over 7 years since you graduated with your BSW, we then also may ask you to repeat some coursework just because we would consider it to be kind of outdated. But we've never asked you to repeat field or anything like that. So it's a minimum of 34, but sometimes it can be 36, 37. So therefore, as a full-time student with us, it takes a calendar year to complete the program. Everybody starts in the fall. So when you start in the fall, it takes, as a full-time student, fall, spring, summer, 1 calendar year. If you were to attend part-time, which is an option for everybody, then it would take you 2 to 3 years to complete. More like 2 years, but somewhere between 2 and 3 years. So that said, the two concentrations that we have are direct practice and community practice. Direct practice is probably 75 to 80% of our students, so it's definitely the more popular option. It's really what I tend to think of as traditional social work practice. Work with families, work with individuals, the one-on-one work that I think we're all fairly familiar with when we think about social work. So school social work, hospital social work, child protection, clinical social work, All of that would be under direct practice. Within direct practice, we have 3 what we call specializations. The concentrations we have, the direct practice and the community practice, those are things that students actually choose. It's kind of like a major. They go in and they choose one or the other, and although there is some overlap between the 2 of them, they are distinct in kind of the curriculum that we have for each of them. The specializations within each concentration are really more like guides for students to help them move toward graduation. They're not anything that you need to tell us you're focusing on. It's just a way for you to look and say, okay, I'm really interested in mental health. So this is the coursework that's kind of laid out. It seems to be fitting for me if mental health is really my focus. So the 3 specializations are mental health and health. We have those kind of combined. Child welfare and child and family services. Those are all within direct practice. There's a lot of overlap between them, but they are sort of 3 specializations that give you a sense of what we think we're really good at.
Sorry.
And then, on the other side, community practice is really for students who ascribe to the values and ethics of the profession, but don't necessarily have a desire to go on and work one-on-one after they graduate. Often it's because they maybe have been doing that for a while, and they're kind of ready to do something different, or they ultimately never necessarily had that real desire to do that. They want to do social work practice, but they'd rather do it with communities than with individuals. So the 2 specializations within community practice are human services administration and community organizing and advocacy. Human services administration has courses like program development and marketing, grant writing, budgeting, leadership, supervision, those kinds of things. And then community organizing and advocacy is really what it sounds. It's for folks who really want to be community organizers, who want to be policymakers or work in the policy arena, who maybe want to do research. That's kind of where they tend to find their home. So we have a lot of options of view, but we do have a lot of students, and I think it not only gives most students a place where they can feel like, yep, this is a fit for me, but I think also the interaction that you have with students who aren't interested in exactly the same thing that you're in is incredibly valuable. I think it's the strength of the program in terms of any direct practice person is going to graduate and have a pretty good sense that understanding policy, understanding communities, understanding community buy-in, understanding the value of that is important, even if that's not what you want to do for your job. And a community person is going to graduate and know that understanding the basics, the foundations of mental health practice or of child protection is an important thing to know if you're going to go work at the legislature or if you're going to do research. So I think that they create a nice balance for each other. Okay, so back to scheduling a little bit. All of our students are able to choose between those 2 concentrations. All of them are able to do part-time or full-time. And then we have 2 scheduling options kind of through our week. All classes are offered once a week. So a 2-credit class will be offered for 2 hours once a week, 3-credit class 3 hours once a week. But there are 2 kind of scheduling options within the week. One is what we call Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We call it that, but when students are in that option, the bulk of their classes, the bulk of their required classes are going to be offered on Thursdays and Fridays during the day. Thursdays and Fridays during the day. So it's called Thursday, Friday, Saturday because it's possible that you could take classes on Saturday, but the bulk of your classes will be on Thursday and Friday during the day. And then we have weekend exclusive, and that is where we really guarantee that all of your required classes will be offered either on Friday evening or sometime on Saturday, every week, every weekend, but that you won't have to take classes during the work weekday. There may be electives that are offered on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, but the required classes are going to be offered on Friday night or Saturday. The only sort of exception to all of that is that if you're a community practice student, we don't have a weekend option for those students. If you're community practice, you can count on the bulk of your classes being Thursdays and Fridays during the day. Yes?
Does it matter if they're the same time, it would still be a year?
It would still be a year, yeah. And you can do full-time or part-time with both of those options, yep. Full-time, and I mean this might be true for all of us, full-time generally is 3 classes plus your field placement. That's generally a full-time load. Sometimes people will squeeze in 1 more class, but it's a lot. And then part-time for us is at least 2 classes at a time or 1 class plus your field placement. So you cannot attend our program 1 class at a time, but you can do it 2 classes at a time or do your field and have 1 class go along with that and get done in a reasonable amount of time. Now, that was kind of a mouthful, so any questions about that piece, about scheduling or concentration?
Do you always have to be either, can you bounce between going full-time, part-time, depending?
Not
really.
You, as an advanced standing student, not necessarily, because the curriculum is it's fairly sequential, and many of our classes are only offered once a year, so a class that's offered in the fall isn't going to be offered in the spring as well. So if you're part-time and you start part-time and you take 2 out of the 4 classes that you're going to need to graduate that are offered in the fall, you're not going to be able to pick those up again until the next fall. Does that make sense? Yeah.
When you're talking about Friday night and Saturday, is there more hours on Friday or is there more hours Saturday?
Well, it depends on what you're taking. There may be semesters when you don't even have a Friday class and you have 3 classes on Saturday, which would be a tough Saturday, that'd be a long day. Or you may have one, I don't think you'd ever have more than 1 class on a Friday evening. It's anywhere between I think 4:30 or 5 and 8 p.m. So you can fit 1 class in there and then maybe 2 or 3 on Saturday depending on how it works.
I have a question coming from the field perspective that I don't think people caught. 2 actually regarding field, Kate, and I'll ask the rest of you my second question too. The first question is you said field in addition to 3 classes. So do they start their field as advanced standing coming right into the program, and does that take them throughout the entire year? Or how is your field structured in the course sequence? And then the second question I have, and I'll ask this all to you, and you can address it, is we require 570 hours here of our field for advanced standing, and I went online and noticed that some of you potentially may ask for more than that. Of those 570, only 450 are required to be supervised by someone with a BSW or MSW meeting the CSWE guidelines. So knowing that, I think some of you might have higher field requirements for your first year students. So for our students coming in with that 450 mark meeting the CSW guidelines, if you require more hours than that from your first year students, would you consider our students still for advanced standing?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to you guys? Okay. Because I know accreditation is kind of whoa, what is that? It took me a couple years to kind of figure that out. So for our students, I'll answer your second question first.
Okay.
Our full program students need to do 2 field placements, of course. Each of them are 480 hours. 480 is more than what you guys require. And that's why, because of accreditation, we require all of our advanced standing students, no matter where they come from, to do 500 hours. And all of it is supervised. So that's how we manage that, because we do know that students come in from BSW programs with different amounts of hours, depending on where they're coming from. And when we when we require 500 for everyone, we know that we'll be in line, we'll be fine with accreditation. So the main point of that is you do 1 field placement, advanced standing do 1 field placement, it's 500 hours. And the way that it's scheduled, there are 2 options for scheduling. One is to begin this is if you're a full-time student. If you're a part-time student, you wouldn't begin field until your 2nd year, really. But for full-time students, you can begin right away in the fall. We actually all work on identifying field placements and matching students with field placements in the spring. So as soon as folks are admitted into the program, that process begins pretty quickly in April. But you can start in the fall, and then that process starts in the spring if you're planning to do what we call a concurrent placement, where you do it throughout the academic year. If you do it through the academic year from September to May, it equals about 16 hours a week. And that's taken care of. You can also choose to do a summer block, and that's where you don't do it during the school year. You hold off and you take a heavier course load. So instead of 3 classes, you might take 4 classes, and then you do it full time over the summer, 40 hours a week over the summer.
And did you say there was 2 field placements of 500 hours apiece? So
no, just one.
Oh, okay.
For advanced standing.
Well, how do you fit all that?
Okay, just one.
Okay.
So what was the one where you said there's 2 placements of 400?
That was for full program students, which kind of was going back to Jennifer's question about.
Just ignore that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as advanced standing students, you do 500. If you were to do the traditional model, you would have 2 internships, both 500 hours apiece. Because you don't meet, because you only do 450 here, and they require, what is it, 480?
Right.
For their first year students, right? They're going to say, if you do 500, that difference between 450 and 500, our hours and their hours, you pretty much, they're covering that in what they're making you do for that advanced standing
Do you guys
program.
have a similar?
Does that make sense?
Are you 500?
We're 600.
Okay.
So they're covering it for you. So you don't need to worry about whether or not you get enough hours here, because they'll have you covered on their end of the program.
So that, I think you just answered it, so that does not affect the acceptance process?
Not at all, no. If you have a bachelor's degree from an accredited bachelor's in social work program, which you will, then that's, you're advancing. Yeah.
I have a question kind of towards Jennifer and you guys. So what about the 120 hours, if it was under that?
Yep, so what we do, we offer 2 field placements in our bachelor's program, which I think most of you that have a bachelor's program do offer. And we, our students do 120 hours in their first placement and 450 in their second placement. That first placement we don't require because CSWE says we don't have to require an accredited supervisor. However, I have told the students that if you're MSW bound, you might want to consider having someone who has a BSW or MSW supervise you in that first placement. So when you apply, it looks a lot better when you say you have 570 hours because you have additional time out in the field versus 450. So if you have that supervisor who has overseen your first placement, you can certainly add those to your internship time.
So then I also wonder if you have over, the 500, do you get that taken out? No. Okay.
It's a good question.
Nice try though. Good self-advocacy.
And then can I ask you a quick question? Do you know if this, like the scheduling and stuff, does this apply and all this stuff apply to the U of M in Rochester?
I'm sorry, I have some really awful news for you. We stopped admitting students to Rochester as of last year.
Did you?
We did, yeah. We had distance programs in Rochester and Moorhead, and they became, in terms of just what we were forced to cut, we had to cut somewhere, and they were very expensive. So we have students that are finishing up there, but we aren't admitting new students. However, we have started a very large curriculum revision to be able to really think critically about how we can offer our program differently to students all over. So I'm expecting that within the next 3 to 5 years there will be lots of hybrid classes and lots of alternate schedules, and everything that I'm saying now may look a little different. But for 2010, what I'm saying is what it's going to be. So that's kind of that was a very, very difficult decision that we had to make. Okay, so I feel like I'm taking up a lot of time. Scheduling, I talked about that. Number of internships, I think I can speak a little bit for all of us. We have over 200 agencies that we partner with. We have a ton of field placements. As you guys kind of already know, this metro area is fantastic when it comes to both a variety of experiences as well as really, really excellent experiences. I think that this area is great in terms of innovation and really good supervision, and we all have relationships with field instructors, often the same field instructors, who are outstanding. So I think that the field options, we could go on and on about that, but they're great. They're great for all of the schools. We have a really great process where we share a lot of them, and we try to really describe them for students so that they know, they have a really good idea what they're getting into, and we give a lot of coaching about what to look for and all of that. So field is obviously a really, really integral, huge part of the program, and we take it really seriously, and we really try to work on balancing what's happening in field with what's balancing in the classroom, and making sure that those two are linking together, and so you're able to practice what you're learning, and you're able to go back and forth with it. I mean, that's part of how I think a lot of our curriculums are designed. Let's see, money. I don't have our tuition rates in front of me right now, but they are online, and I can tell you we do have a lot of sources of financial aid, and I have some handouts on a child welfare scholarship that we have. We also have a lot of GAs, a lot of research assistants within our building, and that's an excellent opportunity to both have an hourly wage that's pretty good, as well as a really, like, half off of your tuition. We have a Hartford scholarship that we share with Augsburg for students who are interested in geriatric social work. We have a lot of financial aid opportunities that I'd be happy to share with you further. What we're looking for. Our criteria for what we're looking for is also on our website. And they're going to be similar, but maybe there will be some differences. Definitely, of course, we're looking for a quality or a high academic background. We want people to be successful. We want to know that they're able to succeed in school. Professional experience is also really important. We prefer at least a year of experience. Often we look for even more than that. A year meaning paid or unpaid, part-time or full-time, so your field placements are included in that year. Yes.
Should that be reflected in the resume, would you say?
Yep.
Okay.
Anything that you want to include, I mean, you should include everything you can in your resume, yes. Yeah. We also look for writing. We look at writing pretty closely. We look for an applicant's ability to practice in a multicultural environment, so we ask some questions that are specific to that, and we definitely look at that closely. We want people to be able to work across difference. We want people to have a good self-awareness and understanding of power and privilege. Those are the main ones. I would say the two that sort of stand out are probably the academic piece and the experience piece, and those often will balance each other out. Sometimes if someone doesn't have a lot of experience, they'll have to have more academics in order to get in, or vice versa. We admit 40 to 60% of those who apply. That's always a common question.
How would you tell somebody to incorporate their experience that isn't social work, but is very similar?
Related?
Yeah. I mean, would you just say put it in the resume and try to make it as applicable as possible?
I would say yes, put it in the resume, and then it's on you as an applicant to use your personal statement to really describe how the professional experiences you've had have brought you to this point where you know that you're ready and that this is the right time for you. Because that's definitely going to be a question that we'll always ask. This may be the right fit. Is this the right time? And is this person, prepared to make the most of this? How do people stick out? That's something all of us can answer. I think really quality writing makes a big difference. Personal statements can kind of look the same, and we try to ask questions that really get at who you are as an individual. It's always okay to share personal experiences that are meaningful and bringing you to this point in your life. Be careful with that. There's always a balance there. But really good writing where you're able to really reflect and kind of dig deep on who you are, why now, why social work and not psychology and not all the other things that are related to this profession. We are very, very clear that we are social workers who have a social justice perspective, and that is in every class that we teach. So that is the first thing we're going to look for, that the values of your own values match those of the profession. And as advanced standing students, it's a little bit easier for you to talk about that. I would say try not to quote the Code of Ethics. Try not to sound, well, I think it's really common. I mean, try to personalize it. Not what is the profession from what you learned in a textbook, but what is it to you? And why is it a fit for you? I think that's often how people end up standing out, is they write something that's genuine and compelling, but they also write in a way that is understandable and has good grammar and has a beginning and a middle and an end, and every sentence is there for a reason, all that good stuff. And it's hard to do both, but I think we're definitely looking for that, and I'm sure that all of us are. Letters of recommendation is also a great way to stick out. We take letters pretty seriously. I don't know if you guys would say the same or not, but we really, and we talked about this before, an outstanding letter I think is one that's credible, one from somebody who knows the work. An academic letter for us is fine, one is fine, but we require 3. I'm kind of jumping all over, but 2 from professionals is what we prefer. So someone who's credible, an MSW is ideal, but not necessary, but someone who's worked with you or supervised you who knows the work and also can talk about it in a way that's thoughtful and intelligent. And then someone who knows you well. So someone who is credible but also knows your work, can give really concrete examples of you, isn't going to follow a form letter. They're going to make us feel like they really know you. And then of course they think you're fantastic. They think you're wonderful. We would be fools to turn you down. If you can find 3 letters like that, that's amazing. I mean, I can't come up with 3 letters like that right now, but if you can do that, that's amazing, and that's what we look for. Letters are pretty important for us. They're nodding, so I feel feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I think your neighbor down the street who did a plumbing job for you is not a good choice.
Personal
I can
references.
tell you that from experience, so.
Did you really get a letter from a plumber?
I don't remember that it was a plumber, but it was
Something similar.
metaphorically like that. So being really thoughtful about who you choose to do references, and I think not only know you, but know how you would be as a social worker.
Yes.
That there's some ability to connect them. You know, they may know you very well as a neighbor, but that's not going to be helpful in terms of your application to a social work program. So how do we know who you are as a compassionate person, as someone who has a commitment to social work values and leadership and social justice, to make those links?
One question, we don't have a thesis. We are, although a very writing intensive program, we have a lot of papers and a lot of group projects in all of our classes. So even though there isn't one final research project or one final thesis or one final clinical paper, there are plenty, you're not going to be hurting for writing. And I know, I'm sure all of us have a lot of writing, so. And we don't require the GRE.
We don't either.
Oh, really? Yeah. So that's a really good thing. Oh, we do have 2 dual degree programs, and you guys probably have dual degrees as well. We have a dual degree with the Master's in Public Policy and the Master's in Urban and Regional Planning and the Master's in Public Health. So if you are interested in maybe thinking about, you know, combining other professions with social work, it can be a really, really great option. You can get 2, for us, you can get 2 master's degrees in 3 years as a full-time student. Advanced standing, it would be even shorter than that, I think. By really kind of combining these 2 and some of the credits that you take in each of those programs will double count toward both master's degrees. So instead of doing them, you know, if you were to do them back to back, it would take 3 years, you know, a year of MSW and 2 years of another master's. It would probably take you 2 to 2.5 years to do both. So Master's in Public Health, Master's in Public Policy, Master's in Urban and Regional Planning are the 3 that we have. And maybe you guys just want to share which ones.
Public health, public policy.
And Urban and Regional Planning. And the Urban and Regional Planning and the Public Policy are with the Humphrey Institute.
We have a dual degree in MSW in law with the University of St. Thomas Law School. Theology with the St. Kate's Theology Department, Luther Seminary is the other one. And holistic health, which is also a master's program at St. Catherine University. And how long it takes any one of those, in any one of those, depends on, for us, which track you're in. And like the law school has some very strict guidelines about when you have to take classes back to back, things like that. So we have plans and you have to be admitted to all programs. So if you wanted a dual degree with holistic health, you'd have to be admitted by the holistic health program and by ours. And then we have agreements with these programs about the dual degree status. And we tend to, with the exception of law, like with holistic health and theology, some of our requirements take precedent because of our accreditation process, where they don't have accreditation. So in terms of what we share and what you can cross-count, there are some parameters around it.
And we have 2 dual degrees, one with Luther, like St. Kate's, and so you would get a Master of Art, the MSW, and then a Master's in Theology, or you could get an MDiv to be a pastor. If you do the Master's in Theology piece, it is 3 years. It's the, well, not for you guys, advanced standing.
About 2.5 then.
2.5 years to do the full MSW and just 1 year at Luther. And then we also have, and we're really
2.5 total.
Total, right. Then we're really excited about a new dual degree, MSW MBA. And that's also 3 years. You do the full 2 years MSW, only 1 year MBA, because 5 of the classes that you would have needed to take in the MBA are covered in one of our tracks in MSW. And so that you can complete again in 2.5 years, the dual degree. So, and that's the MBA one. We're the only dual degree program in the upper Midwest, and only 9% of MSW programs have this MSW MBA. We're really excited because I think there's a big need for that. So, and like the other programs, both at Augsburg, MSW MBA at Augsburg, yeah. And you would apply to both programs as well, at either like Luther and Augsburg, or the two at Augsburg at the same time.
And Lynn, doing that program, you said 2 years of your MSW, so that's 2 years with advanced standing?
Actually, that's without it, so it's really just a year and not quite a half as advanced standing, which
Okay.
we'll explain that when we're
Sure,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Do you want to, what if you want to go ahead?
Do you want me to hand out anything, Kate?
What's our time frame?
As long as we need to.
Okay, well, I can't quite do that. Yeah, here.
I'm just going to give you these and then
Maybe
Yeah.
start with this one.
Well, what I'm going to do is, because I know this group and they get really distracted, so unless it's something you want them to refer to, I'm just going to put them on the table over here.
Okay.
Unless you want them to
No, the
refer to
purple one,
something.
I want them to have the purple.
Yep. Otherwise, they'll be paging through things and not listening.
We'll listen.
we promise.
We promise, Mom.
Do you mind if I'll test this out if you want to? I promise that I don't send out emails very frequently, but if you want to get updates from us and get notified when applications are available and all that kind of stuff, you're welcome to sign up. Otherwise, I'll give the rest of this to you.
Okay, hello everyone. Our program is a joint program between St. Catherine University and the University of St. Thomas. And functionally what that means is that at the graduate level, it's a joint program, so you actually graduate from both institutions. You have both details on your diploma. We have a clinical concentration, which we've had since we started in 1991. And that being said, I think Kate raised a really good point, and that is that we, within this concentration, also emphasize history and philosophy of social work practice, policy, supervision, and research. So having a clinical concentration does not mean that all you're learning about and thinking about is doing one-to-one work. It's clinical practice in all kinds of settings, and it's about how you're prepared. Our program matches very well with the new standards for the clinical license, and we've done analysis of our curricula, et cetera, and so we can tell you when you leave our program how well, which hours you've met for all of the requirements for that licensure piece, and where you'll need to focus any of your CEUs during your first licensure period to finish areas, and some of that depends on which electives you take. For advanced standing, it's 42 credits. Everyone takes a history and philosophy class, regardless of whether you're regular standing or advanced standing. So that provides a common framework for everybody who comes through the program. For advanced standing, you have several options. If you look on page 12 and 13, which is why I wanted you to have this. You'll see the different ways that you can go through our program. On the left side are the 3 advanced standing tracks. So our applications are due January 10th, and admission for advanced standing one-year students is prioritized because advanced standing one-year students start in the summer. Take 2 classes each summer session and then a full course load during the academic year. Our clinical placement is 600 hours. That works out to about 20 hours a week, just a bit more than the 500 divided across the academic year. There is the option for doing a block placement, and there are processes for all of these kinds of things. Kate mentioned that we together do the field process. We have a very coordinated collaboration among the 3 programs for going out to agencies and the interview process and how you go about doing that, because that's part of how we protect our partnerships with people so that they're not having to interview students and take phone calls at all times of the year. And it works very well. We have a really good track record in that collaboration. So this one-year program is really full-time. It's not advisable that you try working 40 hours a week while you're doing this. It's a full-time load. You can also go through the program in 2 years or 3 years, and you'll see how that extends out the coursework. We do have a clinical research project that is required of all of our graduates. Typically that's done in your last year. And that is on a topic of your choice. It's an area that you can develop some extra expertise in. We encourage our students to put that on their resume because it demonstrates that you implemented for real the research process and know how to do that. And it also, like your field, is another way that you have kind of expanded a content area that you have some expertise in. We also, so this is the day evening program. These classes are offered, typically they start at 4:40 in the afternoon, go till 7, and then from 7:20 till 9:45. For some courses that we have a lot of sections of, like methods and supervision, we will offer a 1:35 section. So for some people, like that afternoon is appealing to them. But we typically only have one of any particular course in that time frame. You can also, we also have a weekend cohort format for our program, and you'll see that's on the far right. The advanced standing is 3 years, and that's 3 years only because you start in the summer, and then you take 2 classes each semester. So the full-time definition that's important to think about in our program is for financial aid, 2 courses a semester is considered full-time. So you'll see none of the tracks have any less than 2 courses a semester, depending upon how you want to stretch it out. So that's the cohort program, and actually we've just made a change, so those last 2 years, year 2 and 3, are flipped, so that you're in your field practically in your last year rather than your second of the 3 years. So it's better positions you for moving from your field out into the work world, because there are times when your field actually may lead to a job in that situation. So that's a recent change that we've made in the cohort. Those classes meet once a month for 8 hours. One class meets on Friday from noon to 9 p.m. and the second class meets on Saturday from 8 to 5. There's a scheduled 1-hour break on both of those days for dinner or lunch, and then regular work. There's work that is, this is a program for adults, as all of ours are, so there is work that you do in between. It's not just those 8 hours, just like it's not the 2.5 hours once a week when you're in a class in the day format. So there's more online communication that's involved because it is set up so that people who are at a distance, so we have students from Iowa and Wisconsin and North Dakota, other parts of outstate Minnesota who are a part of that program. So if you live in Rochester, you could be in that program, for example. Let's see, I talked about the research project. We have a clearly articulated focus on social justice. It's something that's very important to us. It's infused in our student association work and in the way that we approach our coursework. We talked about the dual degrees. Let's see, applications. I think I just want to reiterate some of the things that Kate said about the application process, is to be really thoughtful, follow the directions. If you don't know how to do a resume, figure that out. Get somebody to help you and do a resume so that you have clear information on there. So if you worked at a job for 3 months, it says you worked there for 3 months. If you leave it vague, it leaves people who are reviewing your application open to questioning what this means. If you work somewhere for 1.5 years, say that you worked there from June of 2004 till December of 2005. It helps represent very clearly, because when we're looking for how much experience do you have and how do we count what you did as volunteers, paid work, your field work, it's really, it's very helpful to a reviewer of an application to be understanding very clearly what it is you're communicating to us. So just like the writing and the personal statement, how you put together the things that you're doing. And also to answer the questions. I saw Anita had an application here. We have very specific questions that we ask you to address that get at the same things that he's talking about. Who are you? How do you see yourself in relationship to social work practice? What are your goals? What are your strengths? What are your challenges? What is it that you expect to get out of this education? This is very precious. You're only going to do this one time. And so your time and resources, including money, are very important. And so we want you to be ready to do your part of this. There's only so much we can do on the teaching end. We can offer opportunities, we can instruct, we can facilitate. But if you're not engaged, then it's just sort of like, you know, putting a paper hat on and going outside today. It's just going to blow away when you leave. And so we really look at integration and in terms of what's going on in the classroom, what's going on in the field. So we know that's what you're going to be doing. So we're looking at your application in terms of how are you able to do that? How are you able to take a question and understand it and respond to it in a way that's thoughtful and engaging, that taps into some of the depth of who you are and what your level of awareness is, your advanced standing. So in some ways, maybe we expect a little bit more from you because you've had an education in social work. So what you know and understand about social work principles and ethics and values, we expect that to be a little different than someone who is coming as a regular standing student with a bachelor's degree in business. So keeping that in mind in terms of who you are and what kind of expectations might be as you're coming in as an advanced standing student. Okay, I'm looking at the list. Partnerships, I think we've kind of covered that. All our clinical field placements are supervised by clinical social workers. We look at professional experience at GPA. The minimum GPA is 3.0, and this is probably true in all programs, but if for some reason you're doing an application and you played around a lot your first 2 years of school, and so your GPA isn't really strong, but you still think that you can do this, then you need to demonstrate that in your personal statement. You need to address anything that is a criteria that you may be, if your GPA is 2.95, well, what is it about that GPA that you can help us understand that we could take into account? Because we don't look at just one thing in the application process. We look at the whole of what you're doing. The concentrations, I think that's part of how you shine in your personal statement. Let's see. Questions? Maybe some questions.
I think somebody had asked about the cost.
Oh yeah.
This year it's about $616 a credit. And again, just knowing with the economy and inflation, it will go up a little bit next year, but that number will know yet. It's another $616 a credit. And I know Carol also covered the number of credits, so it will be for regular standing 60 credits, for advanced standing 42 credits.
And in the application process happens through St. Kate's. So if you're applying and you have questions, you would most likely about the application process be talking with Anita. And if there are sort of content kinds of questions, then they typically turn it either to me or to someone else to respond to those questions. Once you become a student, once you have registered, then all of that part of the process happens at St. Thomas. We have a registrar at St. Thomas who deals with student issues, the registration for classes and facilitation. Financial aid applications happen through the University of St. Thomas as well. FAFSA is required probably for every kind of thing that you can imagine. We do have, the dean has limited scholarships, diversity scholarships and academic scholarships. How much they are depend on year to year, how many eligible applicants we have. So they apply to full-time students, and so they come automatically with your admission offer. Okay. Let's see, anything else then? Yeah.
How many people do you admit to the program a year, and then what are the class sizes like?
Okay, good question. How many people we admit? We don't have a set number that we can admit. And I know Kate mentioned a percentage. I don't have a percentage admission rate. We pretty much take into account how many people are in the pool of applicants, as well as how much space we have in terms of other tracks, how full we are. It does not matter which track you apply to, because we do ask you to indicate when you're applying. You know, do you want advanced standing 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year? Do you want, is it basically day or weekend cohort? We ask you to identify that in your process. Because once you're admitted to a particular track, say the 1 year track or the 2 year track, that's how we plan our classes. Because if you need a particular class in any particular semester, we'll have a seat for you. We can't always guarantee that you'll have it on the day or time you want. And we manage that with class sizes. So field seminars are smaller, usually 8 to 12. Methods classes are probably around 20 at the high end. And other classes, in order to keep those classes smaller, typically would be between 25 and 30. We have an advising system, so every student who's admitted has a faculty advisor. Our clinical faculty are all involved in clinical practice in the community as well. And so they bring to the classroom experience that is current and fresh. And that's true in actually all of our classes in terms of research. We're actively doing research and policy. People are involved in actions and through the professional organizations as well as some in their own communities. All right, anything else?
Well, just coming from the admissions perspective, I'm already being overwhelmed with so many applications for this year, and the deadline is January 10th. People started applying a year ago. So you know how credible, outstanding the program that's offered at St. Thomas and St. Catherine University is. It's very, very popular, and like I said, it's becoming overwhelming with the applications.
I have a question. Does it matter if I submit my application today or January 9th? Does that make a difference on whether or not I would be accepted?
No, it wouldn't make a difference. The cutoff is January 10th. That's after that, then the applications have been reviewed. But it makes it easy though for the admissions counselor. So I have all my, everything together, and I have everything to present to the admissions committee when they're ready to read the files.
I'll just keep asking questions because I know that they're not thinking of them right now. Anita, if I send you my application today and maybe my financial letter tomorrow and my references a month from now, would that be okay, or would you really prefer that I send it all as a neat little package?
No, it doesn't matter which order you send them. A file will be started for you once we have one piece of information about you, expressing that you want to apply, and then we collect the information as we go. But it doesn't matter which order you send them. I just want to quickly point out with the recommendation, there are 3 recommendations that we asked for. We asked you you're recommended to complete all 3 forms, complete the forms and also send the recommendations. So from each recommender, it's going to come a form and a letter. So it's like 6 pieces from that side. Any questions?
Are we up? Okay. Great. Holly and I are from Augsburg, and
they already have one of our graduates from last year, by the way. I just have to point that out.
Who is that again?
Lynn Carlson.
Oh, yeah.
She started in January. Yeah.
Great.
So.
That's exciting. First of all, before you leave tonight, if you would like more information, because our folders just have some basics to not overwhelm you, but please feel free to fill out the sheet that we have in your folder. You can always just give me a call as well. My card is in the folder. Let's see, a couple of basics about the academic calendar, the length of the program, and scheduling. At Augsburg, we're on a trimester system. And so each trimester is about 3 months. One starts in September, winter trimester is beginning of January, and then the spring trimester is beginning of April, and it goes to the end of June. So when you're in our program, you have the 2 months off in the summer, July and August. So you're not going year round. As advanced standing students, Our foundation students is what we call the people that do not have a BSW. They start in fall, next fall, 2010. Advanced standing students, you all would start winter trimester, and with just one course. The reason for that, and then I'll finish this first, then spring trimester, you're full-time with 3 courses, and then that full academic year of the next year is 3 courses, 3 courses, 3 courses. So it's a total of 13 courses. It used to be only 12 courses that we required, but we found that a lot of BSW students, they find it helpful to have a bridge course in the middle there, because you've been out for a while. The foundation students have been in class for all of fall trimester, 3 heavy courses, moving along. And so that one course seems to be a really good way to sort of help you ease into the program. And so the scheduling, it's all on the weekend college and every other weekend. We've had this kind of format for many years, and the students really love it. You basically every other weekend. Occasionally there's a back-to-back weekend because of a holiday. So after you take that one course, what your trimesters would look like, you would have a course Friday night for 3.5 or 4 hours, a course Saturday morning for 3.5 or 4, depending on how many periods in that term, and then again Saturday afternoon a course. So that's an intense weekend. Again, it's every other weekend. So I hear, Holly would hear more from the current students, but what I have heard is I feel like they still have a life somewhat with some weekends off. I mean, you're very busy. It's all of the master's programs are demanding, and you're working and juggling homework and class and internships. I think this schedule, if it looks like the schedule that would work for you, it's worth looking at.
And Lynn, in regards to that schedule, I know Carol had commented, which I always appreciate because I think there's sometimes a misconception on how much time it takes. For some of the models at St. Kate, St. Thomas, she really recommends that students not work for some of the models. How does that look for your model?
Well, with advanced standing that first year, it's a little easier to have a heavier work schedule because you're only taking one course that first trimester. So sometimes people will keep their full-time job a little bit into the start of the program. But by your second year, you're doing 3 courses at a time and your field placement, which is 500 hours, so that's a lot. And they say, it's kind of just a general ratio for grad school. For every hour that you're in class, you can expect 2 to 3 hours of homework. So you've got that every week and then 16 hours at a field placement, so it's a lot. Some people do it, their lives are crazy for a while. Some people do it, some people hit a brick wall and have to kind of cut back in school or work. So it's really just examining your life, how much you know you can take on, how fast you work, and things like that to make it a personal decision for yourself. But we don't recommend full-time work and full-time school.
Would you say most of our students might work 30 hours?
Yeah, I would say on average our students work probably about 30 hours.
To maintain health benefits.
Yeah. Well, we understand that some people just do have to work, and that's the reality of it, but it's a very personal decision. Yeah, we have 2 different tracks in our program. The first is family practice, and that is our clinical track. So that's looking at direct practice with individuals, families, and groups. And you can kind of tailor it within that track. So say you're really interested in school social work, you could have your field placements at school, and then you could take one of our elective courses as the parent and professional planning course, which is a course that we co-offer with the education department. So there's a little wiggle room within